Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Backyard Tabletop. We are so glad that you joined us. I am Jacob over here, one of your hosts of the Backyard Tabletop.
And I'm Kurtis. I'm the other one.
That is Kurtis. Yeah. I feel like I
That's
always
Jacob.
interrupt you.
No, you didn't. You didn't. You're fine. Everything's fine.
I'm Jacob. I'm one of the co-hosts here, and I never let my co-host get a word in edgewise.
Yep, and I'm Kurtis, and that's who I am, and that's Jacob over there. And
we are so glad that you joined
to
us. Yes, it's just constantly interrupting each other.
That's how it goes.
That's what the description of this podcast is. Welcome to where we interrupt each other constantly.
Yeah, when you're not in the same room. It's just what happens.
It's a little tricky. It's a little tricky over here in the non-millennial stage where everything is online these days. And we just need to all embrace it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. If you are just joining us for the first time, this is a podcast where I sit down with my best friend and we talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Kurtis actually stands. I sit.
I stand.
Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why you stand?
We stand. Do people say stan anymore?
Stan?
I don't
Like
think people say
STAN?
stan. Yeah.
I've personally have never heard of that. What does that mean?
Oh, we stan is like we it's almost like shipping but platonically. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. So you would ship us platonically.
No, well, it's like when somebody does something really awesome, or when somebody is like a cool person, you're like, oh, we stand that person. Like it's like an individual ship. It's like shipping, but for an individual person. It's like,
oh, okay.
It's like, I like that guy. He's cool. We stand.
The asexual version of shipping.
Sure.
Okay.
We stand.
We stand.
We stand Jake because he's a nice guy.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Kurtis.
You know,
and we stand Kurtis like because he knows everything.
I might be 100% wrong.
And that went perfect with what I said. Kurtis, I do have a quick question for you before we jump into today's scheduled of podcast.
You usually do.
If someone in the game of D&D casted invisibility on themselves, the spell, and then used a climber's kit to climb a wall, would you count the hammering of the stake thing
Python?
into the... Yes. Would you count that as an attack and break invisibility?
No. Of course not.
Okay. Great.
Why would you do that?
It was quite literally a video I just watched on TikTok. XP to level 3 was doing a skit, and it was one of those things where he had a whole thing on Twitter, was like, hey, give me your D&D whatevers. Like, what was a ruling that the DM did that you did not agree with? And that was one of them, where the DM ruled, apparently it's an attack roll at the wall to climb, thus breaking invisibility.
No, it's an athletics check. That's why you roll an athletics check and not an attack roll to climb things.
It's one of those things. It's just
it's like, that's like, if you don't want to have to roll in athletics, you just say, oh, I'm striking the pythons into the wall, so instead I'm going to make an attack roll with this hammer that I'm definitely not proficient with. Like, no, it's like climber's tools.
With my wizard of -1 strength.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
No, I agree. It's ridiculous. That's probably why he made a funny sketch video out of it.
An attack roll is specifically like you're trying to hurt something, trying to destroy something, or kill somebody. Like, you're not like, yeah, you can make attack rolls on inanimate objects, but when you do that, you're trying to like break something, not like use it for its intended purpose. Just because its intended purpose is smashing into a wall doesn't mean you're trying to break the wall with the python or anything.
I agree. Yeah. And I think we need to make a stance as a podcast against this.
Well, and we also need to make a stance that, we're right.
Always.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
we stand.
That was it. We stand. That was it. The reason why it was such a short question today was because we kind of have a lot to talk about today, Kurtis.
Yeah,
so we're just gonna jump right into it, and I think today we should talk a little bit about the Phandelver and below, the Shattered Obelisk.
Yeah, we're gonna get back into that.
We gotta get back into that,
baby.
And I'm excited because we're gonna talk. We're gonna start chapter 5. I don't know if we'll get all the way through chapter 5 because this is kind of a long.
Chapters start getting pretty long from here on out. You can
pretty.
There's
beefy.
I'm noticing a very definitive change in feel from chapter 4 to chapter 5. Not just in like the story itself or anything, but just it's newer stuff. It's been written more in the common style of recent adventures, so it's deeper, it's longer. There's more that's written about the characters and things like that and places. It's a very noticeable difference. I don't know, part of me is starting to almost feel like maybe they should have just released the latter half and just said it's an extension of the old one, but then given like a foreword in the beginning of being like, here's some changes you can make to Lost Mines that will help it feel more updated. And so add this person, add these enemies in this place, like here's a new map, like things like that, instead of just reprinting the whole adventure. Because the adventure was great how it was, and truthfully and honestly, I have not, and I've been running it, I've not noticed the hugest difference in how it feels, for sure, which I guess is not the point. They're not trying to change how it feels, but also just in how it plays in general. Yeah,
I get you. And for podcast people, and also just a reminder, like you're trying your best to run this like as the book entails, and you have run Phandelver, The Lost Mines of Phandelver previously. I played in that game, and so this is kind of like you wanted to run it again, but see what the updated one. And for the most part, you're saying that it's basically the same.
It maybe it's because it's been a little while since I've played, and so the fine details, been a while since I ran the original, and so the fine details are a little lost on me, but it doesn't feel any different to me, really. Like, I know the differences because we went over them, but they don't feel as substantial as I thought they were going to be. I thought it was going to feel more updated than it does, and it still feels kind of like an old adventure. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No, I totally get you. And I mean, off the top of my head, the things that really stick out to me on the differences would be like they've updated some stat blocks. Like the mage that you run into in Tor's Watch or something like that. Is it an actual, like, he's like a like a 9th level wizard or something like that. He's challenge rating 6 or something, which in the original he was like a challenge rating of 1 type of thing. So it's like some things have updated that way.
And that's most of what they did is honestly like update encounters. You know, a lot, like some of the treasures different, some of the areas are slightly different, but what that ends up doing is all it ends up doing is making the encounters feel better. Yeah. But the actual story itself and the way it goes is mostly unchanged, which may have been their intention. I don't know. Yeah. That's not to say it's bad. It's one of my favorite adventures still. Because it's great and it's a classic. Not saying that it's a bad thing that they didn't change it, because it's good. They didn't need to change it that much. But when it's in a book combined with completely brand new, brand written stuff, as soon as you get to that new stuff, it's going to be a very noticeable change. I feel like
a little
even for the
a little
players.
jarring. Yeah. Right. And that's a great point. So we'll probably jump back to that when we jump into this chapter, because that was some of the notes I took as well. But do you want to catch us up on your parties playing? When last we left off, I think they had just made it to Phandelver and had like just dealt with the red brands, or started to, or something like that.
Yeah, so I think last we left off, they had gotten to Phandelver after making their way through the Kragmaw hideout. And they had just had sort of a couple of interactions with their first red brands. They'd spoken to Barthen, and gotten in, at least started a fight, I think was the last time we talked about it. We've had a few sessions since then. They were just moving into chapter 2 then.
Right, which is like the side quest No,
chapter 2 is the red brand chapter.
Yeah, chapter 2 is red brand. Chapter 3 is the side quest. Yeah, so they're dealing with.
They've just now moved into chapter 3. So where we are right now, we've completely gone through chapter 2. And it went really well. They kind of, did a bit of their own things for a little while. Each of the characters kind of split off and checked out the town how they wanted to see it, which is some of my favorite stuff. I love introducing NPCs and giving players the lay of the land, and then that kind of gives you the feel for their characters and their interests and how they want to play their characters, because you can look at their character sheet all day, but even they don't really know what they're going to do until they get to a town and have the option to do whatever they want to do. So, our artificer went and started a, business partnership with the local smithy, so that they could, use their tools and their anvil and things and get some materials. Our wizard immediately started looking for the closest thing this town had to a library. The rest of the group kind of just like looked around and went to the inn and just relaxed and had some drinks, which was fun. Our sorcerer, who is kind of a like luck-based person, like they
I remember you talking about that last time.
They use tarot cards and things like that to kind of determine their outcomes and things. They rely on chance a lot. There is a shrine of luck, as we've talked about, in Phandelver.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of cool.
Dedicated to the goddess of good luck, Tamora. And so they went and visited it and were like, wow, that's pretty cool. I was like, yeah, didn't plan it.
It was just there.
They met the tender of that place, and she kind of told them that they might have work for them after they've dealt with the red brand threat. And then they all met up with Harbin Wester, got things going there, and then spoke to every time I think, this is funny, Jake, every time I think of this man, I think Barry Blue Jeans, because of stupid Adventure Zone. Sildar Hallwinter.
Oh my gosh. That is a blast from the past. Oh my gosh.
In friggin' Adventure Zone, they forgot his name in like the second session, and he was like, he's like a cowboy guy, Barry Blue Jeans.
Yeah, they're like Adventure Zone is pretty on the silly side. Their later ones definitely get some fun dramatization going and
but they like to play things
going
off the cuff.
But oh my gosh,
as soon as he makes
episodes,
as soon as he makes something up, it's canon now. Yeah. Yeah. So
especially those days, that was them just completely goofing off. So
that's
fun.
why I constantly get his name keep going like,
Barry,
no, that's not it. That's not it.
I think you should just call him Barry Blue Jeans now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But they met up with Sildar after him getting his chance to kind of rest and talk to the town. They got paid for escorting their goods, and they got paid again for escorting Sildar. So
nice. Okay.
Got a bit of good cash. And they were kind of given the prospect of like, Sildar's like, well, this is why I'm in town. It's because I was trying to find this guy Iarno, but it seems like the Red Brands are causing a problem. Maybe that's the reason he disappeared. Maybe they have him in their hideout or something. So he gives them that whole spiel. And so they were kind of like, yeah, we want to find our friend Gundren. We got to find Cragmaw Castle, but there's this bigger problem right here, and it may lead to answers for figuring something else out. And so it was like, okay, well, we'll deal with this threat first because this town's having trouble with these guys. So thankfully, it was fairly easy to get them invested in the Red Brand threat. I feel like that's especially always kind of a problem because it feels very like, no, but Gundren, like, shouldn't we be dealing with that? And it's like, we don't know these people. Why do we care about the Red Brands? We need to find Gundren. And it's like, it's important, I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like giving some incentive, definitely, which is something I like. I remember going back to our game. I remember like it's one of the pre-made characters that you can do with Lost Minds, whereas one of them is a rogue and his backstory is tied to the Red Brands.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, if you recall, he like wants revenge on them. And that really worked. I remember because it wasn't exactly the pre-written character, but you took the backstory and gave it to one of the players that we were in that played with us. And that, I remember that was a really good incentive to go take care of the Red Brands type of thing. I think it also helps the fact that you spat on one of the characters' shoe and then in return, the warlock just Eldritch blasts them. That's a good way of doing that.
And that was kind of the thing. Like, I needed to create the conflict so that they would have a reason to fight back, because that that was the thing, is like none of them had any reason to get to Phandelin other than getting to Phandelin, or helping Gundren. To do whatever they had to do and just hang out in Phandelin for a while. And so I had to kind of give them a reason. And the in the chapter you read that Iarno has been given orders to capture this group of people and see if they know anything about Gundren or about the Lost Mine. And so, that gives the Red Brands motivation to keep hassling these people. So it's not like they're just going to ignore them.
It's almost like I feel like it is written, and this is kind of a lot of Wizards of the Coast adventures, is that I think a lot of them are written with the in mind of this could be played with 10-year-olds or it could be played with 30-year-olds, right? Sure. And so they kind of have a little bit more of a generic written of it, and then it's kind of like up to you as a dungeon master to like what level of bullying are these Red Brands doing, right? Are you going more mature with it, or are you going like, I mean,
it is
less so?
It is assuredly written in the book that they killed a man and stole his family,
right? They're murderers, right? It's like in the book, exactly. And so it's exactly like that. That's kind of like the hook to kind of like, hey, these people are mean, like. And so I know as a dungeon master, sometimes it can be a little like, okay, I got to create some conflict here.
Which actually, and this kind of speaks for the party and how they were. They're looking out for the little guy. And that as soon as I mentioned that it was like, well, a little while back, a guy tried to kind of stand up to them. They killed him, and his family hasn't been seen since. We think they might have them. As soon as they heard that, they were like, okay, well, yeah, now we got to do something. Like, they have people? They've kidnapped people? Like, okay. I thought they were just like a bad militia that's just been like harassing people, but no, they're straight up murderers and kidnappers, and that's no bueno. So I think that did a lot to help. Again, it's been a minute since we looked at the old version. I don't remember that being in the old version, that they kidnapped these people. I might be wrong.
If I remember correctly,
I might have ignored it when we went through it, because I don't remember running that when we went through it.
I don't remember either, but I do remember both in Lost Mines and this one, the family was people you could rescue when you went to the hideout in town. So I don't know. It's been a long time since we ran it, so I don't know.
All that to say,
from reading it,
even if I did run it, the fact that the characters focused on that a lot more here changed things a lot, because you know they overheard one of the kids in the inn. They overheard the innkeeper's son asking the mom if he could go play with Carp, who you guys know, because Carp found something in the woods just outside of town, so he wanted to go hang out with him. And they wanted to go explore. And she was like, absolutely not. There's red brands. Like you need to play inside the walls and stay out of trouble. And he ignores them. And so as they're on their way to the manor to like explore it, they see these two little kids running over into the trees. And they kind of realize, oh, maybe what they found was like something to do with this. And so a couple of the players went and like talked to the kids. Which was how they found out that Carp has found this secret tunnel that goes that goes under the manor. So that went really well. I liked kind of introducing like that's not in the book necessarily, that the innkeeper's son knows Carp and that he was going to go look at the thing with him. They were in the inn, and I was like, well, how do I introduce this concept? Because, you know, they could go look around, but I also like the idea of them, you know, finding this tunnel if they care to. So I just let them overhear a few things in the inn, just like you always do.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they overheard a kid talking about going hanging out with his friend because they wanted to go explore the manor, and the parents were like, absolutely not. And so it gave them kind of an opportunity to see something like that. So they find the secret tunnel. They make their way in, and we officially start the Red Brand hideout dungeon. It went really well. They did quite well. As they entered, I played the Nothic quite differently this time, because I think when we played it last time, in the original book, like we were talking about, the Nothic doesn't have much of a personality or anything like that. It's just a Nothic. But they give it a name. They give it a, you know, like role-playing things in this one. They make it a little bit more of a standout character. So I wanted to play it a little more aggressively like that. And so they hear things like there's a one-eyed monster that protects this place that makes them feel all worried about it and stuff. And then as they move in, I have the Nothic hiding in like the top right pillar of the room, right? But he's watching them. He knows they're there, but he's hiding, and none of them see him with their passive perceptions. And he's just watching them. And as soon as the first character gets within 30 feet of this guy, I go, hey, can you roll me a deception check? And they're like, a what? A deception check? Like, why? Just roll it.
And
that immediately kind of puts them all like, why are we doing that? And they fail, and I'm like, okay, the Nothic knows this about you now. Okay, great, good to know that.
Because it can detect thoughts, right?
Yeah, basically the way I pulled this was that, you know, this creature is he loves secrets. He loves knowing what he can know about people so that he can manipulate if he has to. He likes figuring things out. Like, he's much more ready to learn your secret and then use it against you.
Yeah.
Rather than he is just like claw you to death. You know what I mean? Like, he will do that for sure if he's forced to. But and I think that makes it more fun because a Nothic is kind of it's a pretty strong monster at second level.
Yeah.
So that was fun. So they all like it was funny because one by one they all walked to the exact same spot and then moved somewhere else. And I was like, okay, can you roll a deception check for me? And they're like, why is this happening? When is this happening?
Going on?
And I was like, okay, great, thank you.
I love it.
And so basically the way I did it was like, it's learning their little secrets. Like, it knows that this character has this issue in their backstory. It knows that this character has this. And so the way I was intending to play it, if they tried to do anything, was like, hold on. Unless you want your friends to know this about you, you're just going to forget you ever saw me, kind of a thing.
Oh,
you know?
That would be great with one of your characters who like has some pretty dark secrets too.
Yes. And a few of them do.
Okay.
So it was, and that ended up happening. The only person that explored this cavern or even saw that creature was Greg's character, the sorcerer. And he ended up seeing it, and so the creature made the telepathic link with him, and basically was like, "Hey, this is who I am. You're in my domain. None of your friends know I'm here. However, I know plenty about all of you, so just forget you saw me, and I'll let you guys hang out. We'll see how this goes." His whole thing was like, maybe this is a new deal. Maybe they'll get rid of the red brands. I'm not too fond of my current deal. It's kind of meh. Like, we'll see where this goes.
And I love that from a place of, sometimes I think as game masters, we do just look at, okay, this monster has a +5 to hit and does this much damage. And okay, or this one has a climbing speed. So how would I use that? Et cetera, et cetera. I think that's a great way of using a spell that it has. Detect Thoughts is one of those very fun, hard to use, I think, in some cases, spells. But I think that's a great way to just add a little bit of depth rather than just they go into this place, they fight this red brand, they fight this. And there's also this monster up here that they fight that's a little different. I think that's a fun way to do, like, to change it up. Like, there's a little bit of mystery. Like, the players are like, what is this creature? What's going on? I don't know what it's talking about. Like, you know, a little bit of secret holding. I love that idea. And I think as game masters, that's a great point of sometimes maybe try and use some of those abilities that you see on the monster stat block. If it has invisibility, how best to use that invisibility, right? Just to change up the environment, change up the stakes a little bit. That's fun. Especially when you have a party that has some pretty dark secrets.
Well, and so let's see. So the way it works, it's not technically Detect Thoughts.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That's my bad.
The way it works is that if it can see somebody within 30 feet, it can use this action, in which case the target must make a deception check against the Nothic's insight check. If the Nothic wins, it magically learns one fact or secret about the target.
Oh, cool.
And that's it.
Okay.
That's all it says.
That's really cool. Okay.
Which was really fun.
For those out there, but that's fun. Okay.
And so it was cool because basically it learned something about everybody. I think only one of the party succeeded, and I think it was actually the one who was like, they don't really have secrets.
Oh, okay.
But they succeeded the check anyway, which would have been really funny if it was like, oh, I need to know about you. And they're like, I don't have any secrets.
It's like,
I'm just normal. And he's like, no, you must have something. You're hiding it from me.
I enjoy ketchup on my eggs. Oh, God, no!
Useless.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and so
That's great.
The Nothic was just. I was kind of like, it's not just gonna jump down and claw these guys. Like, it was here before the red brands, and it's gonna stick around. Like, it's not gonna defend the red brands. It's not gonna like fight these guys just because they're intruding. It's gonna find out what it wants to find out because it likes secrets, and maybe it'll use that to its advantage if they try to do anything to it. You know, like part of my thinking was like, if they tried to learn something from the Nothic, like, hey, how long have these guys been here? What do you know about them? Do you know any of their secrets? Kind of like stuff like that. Then he might start going, well, deal for a deal. You guys give me this, I'll give you this. If you give me this, I'll give you this. Kind of a thing like that. He'd start trying to learn more about them, and what they care about and things like that. And then maybe he'd share his treasure with them too, which they actually never found. They never found his little store of treasure because they were really afraid of the crevice, because as they went in, because you know it gives this like brief aura of necrotic energy, necromantic magic, and as soon as they came in, the wizard cast detect magic. He was like, okay, I need to make sure there's nothing weird in here, no traps or anything. And he immediately started sensing the necromantic energy kind of wafting from the bottom of the crevice. And he was like, okay, well, we're not going in there. And everyone was like, yep, we trust you. And I was like, bummer. Because it's not going to do anything to you.
Bum, bum, bum. And then as a game master, you got to be like, well, that's what they chose.
That's what he chooses to believe. Like, he didn't roll good enough on his Arcana to be like, yes, it's necromantic energy, but it's harmless. Like,
yeah,
you just know it's necromantic energy. So you see the corpses down there and they look pretty decayed. Like, it's not coming from them. It's coming from the crevice.
Interesting. Okay.
So that was fun.
Cool.
But so for this first foray here, they immediately came in from the secret entrance and went left in their first direction. So this first time in, they actually like completely ignored the right half of the whole dungeon.
Okay. So
they went and they fought the room of bugbears first, which was good because I feel like that's kind of the hardest room in the dungeon. 4 bugbears all at once is pretty tough.
Yeah, especially level 2.
For level 2, like one of those bugbears, if they get that first jump on you, could kill you instantly.
Yeah.
So they got the jump on the bugbears because they were being stealthy, which was great. And then the bugbears have their little goblin friend, and they just conked it on the head, knocked it out.
Okay. Did you do?
It's still alive. We'll talk about it in a second.
Okay.
So they left that alone. They killed the bugbears, left that alone. Moved on to the gambling room. They killed everybody there. And then they moved on and immediately found Glassstaff.
Nice.
They walked into his little workstation, which I thought it was fun that he has his little closet in there that's just invisible and hiding, which was fun.
Nasty little creatures. Did they name it Shovel?
No. It has a name. I forget its name. I'd have to look at it. But
I can go take a look and see if I can find it.
They explored his little workstation. The wizard was eating it all up. He's like, finally, some magic stuff. Found some books and the wizard did all the deducing that like he'd been trying to make invisibility potions and all this kind of stuff with the artificer's help. So they kind of did that in there, and the closet's just watching them the whole time. And then as soon as they open the door, Glassstaff's in there just waiting. So they have a bit of a talk. They kind of start asking him like why he's here, who is he, and I kind of very briefly kind of let loose that he like his name is Iarno, and they're like talking to him and stuff, but none of them caught on I don't think immediately that this was the guy. Like Glassstaff is the guy that Barry Blue Jeans is looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
So they fight him. The fight goes pretty well, actually. It was a tough fight because as soon as the fight starts, he goes, get him, like from behind, and then the Quasit appears from behind, and so they're like pincered a little bit.
Okay.
So that was fun.
That's kind of fun.
However, this whole time that they're in here, the sorcerer is out in the other room talking to the Nothic because he found him. And so they beat the first two rooms, and then there was the stairs that go up, right? There's like, you get through the second room, and then you can go forward to his workstation, or you can turn right and go back to the crevice room. And the sorcerer's like, I'm going to go in there and just double check that there's nobody behind us or anything. He goes in there, and then the Nothic, like, he sees the Nothic and starts talking to the Nothic. This was when I said he was the only one who saw him. This is when he sees him, and they start having their like little conversation. And I'm whispering these things to him. I'm sending them over chat because nobody else knows this is happening, and it's all happening in his head, right?
Right.
So the whole time they're over there having this fight, every time it goes back to his turn, he's like, I don't know what's happening in there. Like, I'm talking to this guy. Like, I found this thing. They didn't tell me they were moving into a new room, so I'm just here talking.
Oh,
so
goodness.
So then the fight gets a little bigger, and the druid transforms, and so they start leaving the room and kind of like moving around more. And Glassstaff actually tries running because they're starting to get the better of him. So that's when he notices, and so he actually like heads them off at the other pass. And so Glassstaff makes his way over there, but he stops him. They knock him out. They did a great job with that fight. It was a lot of fun. They find all of the things in Glassstaff's room. They find the letter saying that he has orders from a certain person who is unnamed. However, it's stamped with a spider seal.
Right.
And
some classic clues.
They got all the clues. And they decide to take Yarno and the goblin back to be interrogated and put away in the stocks. So they take them both back out of there. They start talking to Barry Blue Jeans. I'm just gonna keep calling him that because now it's stuck in my head. Yep. They start talking to him about wait, this is the guy you were looking for. Yes, okay, that's weird. Why is he here? What was he doing? He was like, don't think that I'm like that I know what he was doing here. Like, he had no contact with the Lord's Alliance for months at this point.
Right.
Like, we didn't know what was going on. That's why I was sent. So they get some information there, but then they say, well, we haven't really cleared out the place, and there's still those people that are missing, so we'll go back while he's unconscious, and we can come back when it's time to question him, kind of a thing. So they just went back to the place. I already had them level up at this point because the level up stipulation is when they find Glassstaff and defeat him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I had them level up, but they went back. They cleared out the rest of the dungeon. They saved the family, which was great. They fought the skeletons, which was a lot of fun. And they just finished the dungeon. And so they're on their way back out as soon as they're done.
Perfect.
So yeah, they're basically completely done with chapter 2. They just have to interrogate Glassstaff, find out what they can find out. And then they've already been told that some of the people around town have some more jobs for them because they've been so helpful and doing some great
they've been
things.
helping people up.
So they've been told a few people that want to talk to them. So it's good. We're going right into chapter 3 with lots of great stuff. They're gonna find information. They're gonna have some jobs to do. It's gonna be great.
And then now they're entering the side quest chapter. That's gonna be great. Very cool.
And I'm really curious how many of them they're actually going to care about or do. I kind of get the feeling that as soon as they get some information from Glassstaff about, Cragmaw Castle and who they're dealing with and like those kinds of things that Glassstaff knows, he doesn't know a lot, but the Goblin might know a little bit more because the Goblin knows like a general area in the forest that the castle is, but he's never been there. He just heard the bugbears talk about it. So, and the Goblin, I don't want to talk too much about it.
Okay.
Because I'm worried people are going to watch this episode.
No, that's totally fine.
But
we'll talk about that eventually.
The Goblin's fun. It's going to be an interesting thing having them talk to the Goblin because they spared it. They didn't kill it. Which I kind of expected them to just kill it along with the bugbears, but they didn't. They spared it. They took it into custody. So we'll see what they do with that.
Perfect. I did find the Quasit's name.
Oh,
Zeond. Zeond.
Zeond.
I don't know. I think I would have liked Shovel, but
yeah, basically he was like, now Zeond, and then they like struck at the same time from behind.
Oh, great.
So it was fun.
I love it. That's very cool.
Yeah, so
very cool,
we'll
man.
See what they do.
That sounds great. Great entering of the side quest. I think it would be actually really fun just from a DM's perspective of like if they kind of focus mainly on the main quest.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me would be like if they don't take care of that green dragon, to have that like as like a side quest still, not really. I mean, you could tie it in if you want to. Maybe the mind flare overlords underneath.
Yeah.
Will take over that dragon. That could be kind of fun. And then later you could have an elder brain dragon. That would be really fun. You'd have to tone it down for like level 12 characters, but still I feel like that would be really fun of just having a side quest of like the dragon becomes more and more prevalent and taking out towns. And then you could have a fun dragon side quest.
It's just kind of growing as they're growing. Yeah. Becoming a bigger threat. Yeah.
Kind of fun. Well, cool, man. Well, that is what Kurtis's party is doing. But at this point, just for the rest of this podcast, we're going to start how chapter 5 happens, and just kind of to catch a little everybody up a little bit on the kind of the story. Essentially, after what Kurtis was just talking about, they do a bunch of side quests, and then Wave Echo Cave is chapter 4. And that's where they kind of find the spider and take care of the spider and the drow that's there. And then once they kind of take care of that and have kind of founded Wave Echo Cave and working with Gundren, hopefully he's still alive at this point, they can work out an agreement. And basically Gundren starts to start the mine up again. Now, chapter 5, like we may have talked a little bit at the beginning, is that chapter 5 kind of takes a turn, and it's definitely very different. And the chapter starts out with basically saying that the characters return to Phandelver after their adventures, and they find the town has been kind of ransacked by supposedly a bunch of things that have kind of gone around terrorizing the town. Thugs. It's a little bit odd that no one quite knows what they are. They're kind of clearly goblins with some extra little powers that have kind of been going around. So they kind of get back, and there's like a riot that's somewhat going on. A lot of people are distressed. They are in front of the town master's home, and they are here to basically demand that he does something. That these things are happening, and there's 4 main locations that are kind of investigation things that the players need to go investigate. Essentially what's going on is like a little bit of history is kind of explained in this chapter of like the goblins and where they came from. Why do they have these powers and things like that? And it actually explains a lot of it. Very briefly, the goblins were here generations ago, and underneath the town, there were these mind flare overlords. We're talking about like centuries ago. They had these mind flare overlords. Eventually, the mind flares left, but the goblins stayed, and they were changed to kind of have some remnant of the mind flare powers. Kind of like how the Gith are, and kind of like how the Dragar are, how their species have been changed because of enslavement with the mind flares. Essentially, right here with these goblins, some of them have been changed as well.
Yeah.
Centuries later, the mind flayers underneath have returned and are kind of talking to this goblin tribe leader. And the goblin tribe leader thinks that these are gods talking to him. And so he's listening to them, and they're kind of going about, and he's ordering his goblins to do his bidding. As of right now, exactly, he has been chosen. The goblin leader doesn't know that they're mind flayers, but he believes him to be chosen. So he has ordered his goblins to go and find these obelisks, which have actually been hidden in the town in very interesting ways. I actually thought that was kind of fun. That they're actually, so there's 4 locations. We mentioned it a little bit before. There's the Barthen's well, excuse me. Mm-hmm. Barthen's Well had an obelisk in there. The Miners' Exchange, there was part of the building. There was like a cornerstone. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then the Shrine of Luck had mm-hmm. a thing in there. And then there's also the Sleeping Giant Inn had a what they believe to be a petrified giant, and that's kind of how the inn got its name. Yeah. And they took that. So basically, that's a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes, and the players need to kind of come into this, and they need to go investigate each location and determine, but like each place has a little bit of clues, and ultimately they're going to be sent to go look at this old Dragar mining facility.
Dwergar, right?
Dwergar. What did I say?
Dragar.
Oh.
Dwergar.
Dwergar, yeah. Thank you. I suck at names. I'm sorry.
No, everybody. I was like, oh, Dwergar. Okay. I was like, I just couldn't understand what you were saying at first.
This is why I have Kurtis here.
Really, I mean, big left turn from the rest of the adventure, kind of like we already said. It just feels different immediately. And there's nothing wrong with it being different, and it's not like it's written poorly or like it's a bad adventure. There just feels like a very noticeable difference between how the adventure has been written and ran so far and how it will be written and ran moving into this new section. And nothing wrong with that. It's hard to avoid that. You know, you're writing something completely new, which is why I kind of had the thought of, why not just make a new adventure that's a sequel and then just give some pointers on how to update the previous one instead of like reprinting it, because it just feels weird and different. It feels like a bit of a disconnect as you're reading it in the book. But
just reading it, I'm kind of like, as a game master, my first thought was kind of like, wow, this is a little bit of a change. I think I would have liked a little bit more of a little bit more downtime, but also like just maybe something easier to bridge the gaps between the two stories. I don't know, like a clue, like, you know, there's a spectator in the Wave Echo Cave. Maybe there's something there that kind of bridges the gap a little bit, or maybe just, I think for me, I would have liked a little bit more of a bridge between chapter 4 and chapter 5, because
Maybe
it's kind of
they-
like chapter 4 ends, that's kind of concludes of a story, and then
they
chapter
counter one
for
or
it.
two of those weird goblins, like
Yeah.
don't just make it things that they've heard about, like get if you're doing the work of completely rewriting the story, they didn't really rewrite it, but you know what I mean,
Right.
updating the story,
Right.
add a couple things to foreshadow what's going on, because there's even bits in here where it's like, yeah, they say like they thought they had this petrified piece of a giant in the inn, like say that in the very beginning of the adventure, when you're
Right.
introducing Sleeping Giant Inn and you're telling me all the things about Sleeping Giant Inn, include that in there, that like the Sleeping Giant Inn thinks that they have a piece of petrified giant, that's why it's called what it is, and it's under the
Right.
bar, like include those things
or even
as
on display
bits.
or something like that.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, whatever. Like those things that you add here should be in before, because then it's like, oh, why did we notice that before, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Why didn't we know there was a well behind Barthen's? Like, why didn't we
Yeah.
know that there was a piece of a petrified giant in the Sleeping Giant Inn? Like, shouldn't we have noticed that before? And it just feels like it's a different town now for some reason.
Yeah, I agree. Which is why I kind of like, and just kind of prefacing this here, I talked a little bit about this with Kurtis, but for me, I think as a game master, I almost would approach this from like once chapter 4 ends, it's like I would probably introduce some downtime in the town. So they can start, like maybe actually start, if the players want to, they could start settling in at the town. If you mentioned that one of your characters is kind of into the blacksmith, so maybe he becomes like, ask for a job or something like that, starts working with him, or see if it's okay for him to open up a secondary shop, something like that. Or if the players have something else they want to go do, maybe it's a week of downtime and you role play that a little bit. They head back to Neverwinter or whatever that is. And then for me, I think how I would have done it is like there's a raid on the town with the characters there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I will preface this. I will preface this with saying I don't know if this is the quote unquote right way to do it. Obviously, you do with what you want, but I feel like for me, I think it would have been cool to kind of have some time, a little bit more time in the town, a little bit more downtime activity, going to do things. Maybe there's even a small little side quest that you guys do of hearing, this town, this farm got ransacked. They go and experience that, and there's some goblins there that are these weird goblins that they actually attack and fight a little bit. And then there's a big raid on the town. So instead of having it where the players come back and these things happened while the players were gone, I think it would be kind of fun if like the players actually have to defend the town from this goblin raid, clearly seeing that the goblins aren't necessarily here to kill everybody. They're here they're taking things, right? They're kind of setting things on fire, causing havoc and stealing things, and they kind of retreat from there. And then like the aftermath of the battle is them going to find these places, specific places that the goblins hit.
Right.
I think for me, that would also indicate that these goblins have a little bit more of a plan, like a plan behind their invasion, rather than just
somebody's telling them what
goblin
to do.
Raid. Yeah.
And you're trying to understand, why are they doing that? Like, why wasn't it just a raid? And and they have like the table of goblin mischief, right? Where it's like, as you're walking around town and exploring, you'll just come across groups of goblins in the middle of town. Like, wouldn't people notice that? Wouldn't there be an alarm? Like, wouldn't it just feels kind of weird? You know what I mean? It feels kind of like, oh, we're under attack, but we were already attacked, and now there's goblins just running around in town. Like, wouldn't people fight them? Wouldn't, like, I don't know what Sildar would be doing at this point, but like, wouldn't he be around? Wouldn't he fight? Wouldn't they at least like call an alarm for the town, have everybody like shut her down? Like, like it just feels kind of weird. It feels like you leave for Wayback Cave, because that is kind of a trip. It's like you'd probably be gone for like 4 days ish.
Yeah.
And then you come back and it's like suddenly the town is like under siege. It's not just that it was ransacked. Like there's still goblins present. Like they're still running around doing stuff.
One of the investigation sites, you actually go to like a goblin camp that's nearby with like 3 goblins waiting for more goblins to come to, type of thing.
Right. So it just feels like this weird disconnect of like we're under attack, but also we're kind of not. So it's like a weird in between thing, and it just feels kind of artificially hectic, I'll say.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. And granted, I know it probably was a little bit hard for the writers to approach this with like, it's like, I don't know how they even approached it. It could have been like, hey, we're updating this section. You guys just start here and go from there. And so maybe they had a difficult time coming in to do this. But I think I would have liked a little bit more of almost an in-between, hey, this is how you introduce the goblins a little bit more. And I realized that there was stuff in the past, like the goblins at the very, very, very beginning could have had these rumors. When you go to that castle, those ruins, those goblins there have also heard of these rumors. But to me, I think there should be something a little bit more of interaction with these weird goblins rather than just hearing about them.
Well,
I don't know.
And you know, to be fair, you're level 5 at this point.
Yeah.
If you run across 4 goblins messing with somebody's house in the middle of town, they're dead. Like that doesn't mean anything to you. It's 4 goblins. Like you're level 5.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a little less hectic and more just like you're just kind of cleaning up after the real bad stuff happened. But it just feels weird to me a little bit.
Or maybe emphasizing that this town is not fighters, that they're just, it's like if
they
like
don't have
I'm
a militia. Yeah.
Right. It's like, if I see a goblin out there, like in like a shield and a scimitar, and they're like, I don't know if I would necessarily go out there and tell them to stop. So it could, approaching it from like the townspeople are scared or something. But I think, again, I almost feel like I would have tried to play a little bit more on, again, protecting the town, having a little bit more downtime in the town. I think would have been a great way to introduce this next part. And then showing that the goblins actually have a little bit more of a brain, a little bit more of a plan, could be also one of those things of like, as a game master, if you have an intelligent player, maybe they're like, hey, does this seem off? And you could be like, well, it did seem odd that the goblins had a plan. Normally when they raid stuff like this, they run in, grab a bunch of stuff and leave. They don't necessarily have a plan. They're kind of causing mayhem. This one actually seemed like they had certain key points that they were attacking. Yeah. Right?
Seems odd.
It could be one of those things that they investigate a little bit more.
For sure.
But yeah, and also with that, this was the other thing that was kind of funny to me. Again, they introduced the new NPC. So as they are going about these investigations, there is a dwarf acolyte that hails from the city of Neverwinter. She kind of shows up. She's seeking her sister, who is a bartender at the Stone Giant Inn, and she kind of is like an historian, if you will. She kind of takes special care and knows certain things about the area, and she does a lot of research and things like that. And then she also, interestingly enough, knows a lot about goblin history and things like that. So that was another thing that was like, oh, that's a little convenient. I almost feel like I would have had her present beforehand. But she seems like a cool new NPC. I kind of liked her little description. And a fun little add to the town, because kind of like you said, like you said one of your players was looking for like a library. So it will be it's kind of fun to introduce an NPC that might, be a little bit more of the studied
more
type.
Of a scholar. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. but she is here to kind of help the players do some investigation, and also wait for the DM. Like if the players get stuck, she can kind of step in, and kind of give some direction of the things that you find, and you work with her. But you soon learn that each of these places actually were obelisks. There was 4 of them that the goblins stole. And essentially by the end of these investigations, they should learn that they need to go to... Scroll down. Wow, I was really far up. Zorzula's Rest, I believe is how you pronounce that. Which is an old dwarf mining outpost, if you will. And this place is actually quite big, so we're probably going to stop right here for this podcast. We'll pick it up at a later date and just continue our thoughts here.
That's the other thing is, and this is common as you start hitting higher levels in campaigns and things, but the rest of these chapters are much longer than really anything in Lost Mines. Which is normal. I mean, Lost Mines is kind of a beginner's adventure. The chapters are simple and easy to get through. But like, for instance, the chapter 4 of Lost Mines is 3 sections. It's a running this chapter section, the Wave Echo Cave section, which is just the dungeon, and then the What's Next section.
Yep.
Chapter 5 has 6 sections, so double the size of the chapter. The only chapter that's about the same size as chapter 3, and that's because it's got like 5 side quests, 4 side quests. So it's just, the chapters start getting bigger and longer at this point. You're going from, at this point, they start the chapter at level 5. They go from 5 to 7 in this chapter. So it's they're getting a little more intense, which is good. It's fun.
And I will say, from a perspective of a game master, like if I was a new game master and approaching this, I think I do like how they sectioned it out. It does feel like chapters 1 through 4 is like that adventure, Lost Mines. It's still very good for new dungeon masters. And then the later ones, the chapters are getting a little bit longer, but it is still like, I feel like as a new game master, they sectioned it out really well. And I think they did that well. Like if you are a new game master, I think this would be a good first attempt of running a pre-written adventure.
And I want to reiterate that I think part of the reason that they didn't add a bunch of new stuff to Lost Mines to kind of like foreshadow is because they were kind of caught in a weird in-between of, if you want to just end it at the end of Lost Mines, you can. Like,
you still can.
You don't. It doesn't feel like you're leaving things untold. If they just get back from the Lost Mine and everything's fine, and you don't continue, then that's fine. You don't continue. It doesn't feel like, oh, but there's these weird goblins are running around that we haven't heard about, and there's this little line of stuff that's been kind of connecting to something weird up here that we haven't done yet. And if you end it at chapter 4, it won't feel like you're leaving things undone, which is good, I guess. But I feel like they still could have added those things and said, if you plan on continuing, here's some things to look at. Yeah. Because there's still, like, in my head, it's like they could still be like, hey, if you just want to run the first 4 chapters, this is updated, but you probably should go grab Lost Mines of Phandelver if that's like all you want to do. If you want to run this adventure, hey, there's a little bit more that we've added to help in those later chapters. Like, it just feels like they were caught in between wanting to create something new that this classic adventure could lean into while they update it.
Yeah.
But also leaving it as it was so that you could just run it as it was, just update it if you wanted to. So it feels like a weird in between where I feel like they should have committed one way or the other. They should have just either completely rewritten it and updated it and just basically did an errata basically, version of Lost Mines, where they re-upload it, or commit, like make a full new adventure. You can rewrite and reuse some of the stuff in Lost Mines, but add more, add context, add things that lead into these new chapters, because it does feel disjointed a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. And maybe a little bit more depth too.
Yeah.
Add a little bit more depth to it, a little bit more nuance, if you will. But that is just our opinion.
And it's
I
right.
still think, yes, we established that at the very beginning of this podcast. Well, we will continue chapter 5 at a later time. Our podcast may be jumping a little bit all over the place, but this is kind of us, Kurtis and I, to sit down and just talk about the games that we're doing. I'm playing a game now, Dungeon Mastering again, which is really a lot of fun. And then obviously Kurtis is still doing his, where he is playing a character, Cal, and what's Cal's going on in the Pathfinder universe.
Cal almost died. I haven't told you that. Cal got real close to dying in our last session. He got into single digits while in the belly of a beast. So it was rough.
Okay,
we'll have to go back to that.
I definitely, I know on the podcast we're quite a bit back from what currently you are. What level are you currently?
11.
Oh,
level
snap. 11. Nice. Oh, goodness. I bet that feels...
We leveled up quite quick for a little while there. I think we gained 3 levels within the course of like 6 sessions.
Oh, nice.
Just because we kind of like went through a section very quickly. We kind of skipped a couple things. So we leveled up quite a bit. So
nice.
Yeah. So yeah, we're level 11 now. We just fought a real big guy. We fought basically a purple worm, but kind of different and updated and changed a little bit. It was a lot of fun. We'll talk about it.
Oh, snap. I love that. Alrighty. Well, and also there's some really cool things coming to like D&D Beyond that I think I would love to talk about. The new Vecna thing sounds really cool. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that adventure seems really fun.
Yeah. One D&D's coming out this year.
Yeah, one D&D's coming out this year. That's going to be interesting. And then also, this is just warms my heart. Humblewood is coming to D&D Beyond.
Humblewood's on D&D Beyond now. Yep.
Which was really cool. Humblewood has a soft spot in my heart. I love Humblewood.
Humblewood's great. That was such a fun game.
Yeah, and honestly, I loved the subclasses in that book. I think they have been some of my favorite third-party subclasses. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, for sure.
So we got some fun stuff coming up this year, and Kurtis and I are going to do our best to keep up with it, but also just have some fun and chat.
Yeah, man, things to talk about, stuff to do. It's a good time for D&D.
It's a good time for D&D. I think this year has been a better start than last year.
Yeah. We don't talk about that.
We don't. This year's great. 2024, baby. Yeah. All right. I think we should just stop there.
Yeah, just quit it? Okay, all right, bye.
I have been Jake. Thank you all so much for watching / listening to our little podcast here on our little side of the internet.
You know who I am.
Yep. Oh, secret word, because I forgot to do that last time.
Oh, secret word.
Yeah. Do you have a secret word for today?
Sarnak.
Sarnak.
Sarnak was the Nothic's name.
I love it. Thank you all so much for watching / listening. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.